Welcome to Authentic Living with Roxanne, a place where we have conscious conversations about things that really matter in our lives. And now here's your host, Roxanne Derhodge.
Everyone, it's Roxanne Derhodge of Authentic Living with Roxanne. Thanks so much for tuning in yet again this week to listen to some of our special words of wisdom from our guests. Today we have Dr. Lana Marconi. She has her PhD in energy medicine, and she has honored us today to come in and talk about her path and the things that she's done over the last couple of years. Lana's had a dream of reaching out and offering empowering knowledge more than just beyond her one-to-one practice. And she started on a meteor journey. At the time I met Lana, she was actually still involved with Rogers TV, and I've been on her show a couple times, and then was honored to be on her very, very first film documentary at the time, The Wellness Story, going back a couple of years ago. She produced over 50 living television shows on Rogers Canada, and you can watch most of those on YouTube. She's since gone on to produce several independent documentary films. The Wellness Story, like I said to you, was the one that I was honored to be in. The Resonance, New Human, New Earth, New Humanity, Feel, The Waves of Intelligence, and Arenda, The Force of Consciousness. She's won various fantastic awards at the Awareness Festival in Los Angeles, Indie Fest, Mediterranean Film Festival, the Cannes, and the International Film for Spirituality, Religion, and Visionary in Bali. Wow, you've done a lot since I know I've seen you over the years, but what an amazing list of accomplishments. And recently what Lana's created is she's created basically a global TV and film network style platform that's created for high vibrational content that speaks to kind of the emerging new human, or what I say is the ascended individuals that are on that path to heightened spirituality. And it's called 5D TV, the Next Dimension Network. Okay, did I get all of that right? I hope I did. So Lana, thanks so much. Is there anything that I missed from your bio that you'd like to share with the listeners?
No, I think you pretty much nailed it, Roxanne. So thank you very much for that lovely introduction.
So, you know, what I find fascinating is for you to talk a little bit about your path. And obviously, when I met you, our story was that at the time I was doing an interview at here in Niagara Falls at Cogeco, and I believe I was on the John Storm show, and you were behind the camera or in the camera room, and I didn't realize. And Lana had listened to my interview and had just chatted with me at the end and say, hey, can I have a copy of your book? And I said, sure. I didn't really know who she was. I gave her a copy, and then hence she read the book that night, which can I tell you, I'm often impressed because I'll give my book to people and I know they don't read it. She read it. She said, hey, would you like to be in my documentary? And then the rest is history. We've stayed friends since. Yeah. So tell them about your path and kind of what got you into energy medicine and the evolution of things that have happened ever since.
Sure. Well, first of all, the reason why I was at Cogeco that day is because I was wanting to get more training, production training. So I was doing community producing at Rogers in Mississauga. And then my parents lived in Niagara Falls. So I went to the Cogeco station in Niagara Falls to get additional training. And so I just happened to be behind the camera when you were there. And at that time, I was in the process of doing my first documentary. So the stars just aligned for me to meet you because you were like terrific in the Wellness Story documentary. So it's just amazing how the universe lines us up together with people that we don't even know, but that we need in our life to help us fulfill our goals.
You know, and I have an amazing story about that that I'd love to share with you at some point, talking about that whole law of synergy and attraction of the people somehow, right? Like obviously not somehow, it's not haphazard, we know that, Lana, but how you create the context of the people around you, and even the people that I recently got involved with my events. A lot of them are directly related to The Secret, which is interesting. And I'd met someone in New York that had seen me speak and liked that, like my message, and was like, wow, was also a psychologist like myself, same kind of background, approached me, and that's kind of how. And he just recently was the one that put Bob Proctor at Carnegie Hall in New York. So it's interesting how like you said, that alignment. And like with you and I that day, I didn't even ask who you were. We talked really briefly, and then I'm on a film documentary, which I was so honored to do, because I was so soon when I was launching my book. So
yeah, and then I had you on Rogers TV on my health show.
Right.
Came to the studio, so that was fun. But yeah, going back to your question, my journey, my PhD in energy medicine, and actually I went to school to get a PhD in psychology, which I did. Well, it's a PhD, Doctor of Theology in Psychology. But as I was learning psychology and consciousness in the mind, as you know, because you have a background in psychology, there's so many different fields or branches of psychology. Like you have your cognitive psychology, your learning psychology, you have Freud and Jungian psychology, humanistic, and then there's transpersonal psychology. So I had to go through the basic psychologies to get to transpersonal psychology, because I really don't teach that, at York University, where I did my BA in psychology. And I just felt that there was something missing in the general psychology. And so I went to go pursue a doctorate degree in spiritual psychology in California. And at the time, I started learning about energy. And so my focus shifted from consciousness to energy, and I needed to learn more about energy and how our energy and our consciousness interact to help us actualize our potential. So then I ended up getting a dual degree in energy medicine and in psychology. And then the energy work just fascinated me even more. So I furthered my studies here in Ontario in Chinese medicine and became a registered traditional Chinese medicine acupuncturist, because energy, I have felt, is just the foundation or the blueprint of the physical reality. And so if we can learn how to adjust or tweak or massage our energetic fields, then we can, the hot term is manifest whatever we desire in the physical plane. And that takes a lot of focus and concentration using our consciousness to direct the energy.
So for the average person that does not, we hear, you're right, the hot button is manifest, well, a lot of people use those words, Lana, but I'm not sure that the average, not that our listeners are average in any way, but can you explain what that means when you say manifest, right? Like, okay, I like that car. Is that a manifestation, or is it more? Like, can you explain to me or to people listening what that means when you get conscious or energetically connected?
Sure, absolutely. So there's different levels of speaking. To manifest something, the first step is to, obviously, what I do is close my eyes, I visualize it, and then I feel it. I feel the energy. And for me, it's just, it's the heart power. So it's love and joy and bliss that I impose upon the images that I want in my mind. And so right there, when those two collapse together, that's a manifestation that I'm experiencing in my consciousness. So that is a manifestation. It's not a physical manifestation yet, but it just happened because I just made that happen. Mm-hmm. Right? So you have what happens to you behind the eyes, and then what happens to you in front of your eyes. So the next step is, if it's already created here, if you keep focusing on that and that energy, then you direct the field to manifest it out here, right? And
so it starts by a thought.
Yes.
And then when you basically create that thought in your mind, and then you have the thought connect to an emotion, your emotional heart center or good space, and then you repeat that over and over again. Is that what you mean?
Yes, and you can rev up the the manifestation, like, so I exercise. So one of the things that I do is I'm on the treadmill, like just before this conversation, because this is the morning time right now, I was on the treadmill. And so what I do is I'll jog on the treadmill and I'll visualize, obviously my eyes aren't closed, but I'll visualize, because I've gotten very good at this, my goals for the day. And then I'll push, or I'll impregnate those goals with like high vibrational feelings. And because I'm running, I'm at such a higher my momentum is higher.
Okay.
So whenever I do that or engage in that type of activity, my manifestations happen quicker because I'm putting more energy behind it.
So you're changing, is it because you're in altered state already because you're physical?
Because I'm running. So that's releasing the beta endorphins. Right.
Oh,
so I have the chemical release of feeling high or feeling good already. Plus I'm directing my heart power to feel that emotion, but my body is also feeling that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So for me, that makes things happen a lot faster.
So is that, okay, so that's obviously, like, you're right, when you're like, I do like boot camps and stuff like that, right? And you're thinking, you're in that state and you're like, oh goodness, I can't do anymore. And then you feel good and you're right, you're in an altered state. So is it just, is it done also in meditation where it could be in stillness, or does it also always have to be in an exercise state that you manifest quicker?
It can happen in manifestations. I mean, when meditation state as well. For me, I just noticed because the energy that I put behind it when I'm physically running. So I have my thought, my emotion, my physical body all aligned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's power behind the three being aligned. When I'm just lying down meditating, which I do daily at nighttime, I can bring myself to that high level, but it's not as high as I would be as if I was running, releasing those beta endorphins.
Okay. So what about walking meditation? Is that something else that because I've tried that before. We have a meditation center here in Niagara Falls, and I've done that before. I would go and walk. So is that also something that you find that it's helpful? Let's say if someone doesn't do something as strenuous as running, would that be something that you find could also help you visualize, emote, and connect to your body?
If it's done in the proper environment, like if you're in a forest, so the energy of a forest has a higher vibration than if you're running around or walking in the city of Toronto. That's a concrete jungle, right? It's going to be a bit difficult to tap into the earth energy, in a city state. But if you're in nature, yes, that will help. That environment will help amplify your ability to manifest.
Okay, amazing. So, good point, right? When, like with me with psychotherapy, oftentimes what was lacking in psychotherapy was definitely the body. So years ago, when I started practicing, we would talk a lot about thoughts or cognitions. We talk about emotions, but we knew it was happening in the body, but I don't think we had the context of anything research-based to talk about the body, right? We wouldn't ask people, so what's happening for you internally? What's happened in the field since, which I'm sure you know, is that now there's so much research and data to substantiate that we're remiss in not talking to people about what are you experiencing now? Tell me what's happening in your body. Where is it taking you? What's happening for you? What's the first time you've experienced that? Those types of things. Things like sensory motor therapy. I do something called EMDR, which looks at the physiological, along with cognitions and thoughts. So we've moved along, definitely. So tell me how, with energy medicine, how does that kind of work with the body, with thoughts and with emotions? If you've never experienced any, maybe talk a little bit about what energy medicine is.
Sure. Well, we're made up of energies. So if you look at, we have our physical body, then we have our organs, and what makes up our organs? We have cells. What makes up our cells? We have atoms, and then there's electrons, and then there's particles. Particles are a vibration of energy. And so whenever we think a thought, depending on the thought we think, we can change the energy or the state in our body. So heart math is a good example. Their research out of California shows that when research participants felt happy, blissful, accepting, and forgiving, their DNA expanded. So that improved the immune system response. By contrast, when research participants were taught to feel anger and aggression and jealousy, those lower human emotions, their DNA contracted. So that hindered their immune system response. So right there, you can see how our mind can, like that, just change our DNA. And our DNA is made up of particles, which are energy. So
Right.
you see the interplay between our consciousness and energy. Yeah.
And I think, a lot of times we talk about it, but, in the Western society, I think we're not as far along as like the Eastern philosophies, right? How far do you find in your path, right? Because you've been doing these amazing films. When I was on your film, like, we had every genre of individual that was on there, from, people that did energy medicine to natural nutritionists and psychologists and stuff like that. So tell me, do you think that we are heightening our sensitivity in the West in reference to energy?
Yes, I think the collective consciousness is expanding their perception beyond the limited version of the third dimension. I think more and more people are waking up to the fact that, they're not just physical beings. I think a lot of people are waking up to feeling the subtle energy within their body. That's why, yoga is big. A lot of people do yoga for physical, but at the same time, it transforms your body to help you feel the energy moving through your body. So yoga is becoming very huge here in the West. I work in Oakville doing my traditional Chinese medicine practice, and on every corner there's like a yoga class. So it's big. Qigong and Tai Chi, we hear more and more people engaging in these types of Eastern practices that are there to invoke the energy within.
For sure, and I started to do Kundalini yoga probably, I think, after your film. And what a powerful, like, I've done lots of different yoga over the years, but recently getting involved in Kundalini, it was like, what is happening here? Like, it was like it was like a times 10, right? And I was like, whoa, like, like I was having all these, I'll give you an example of what happened to me. And I tell this story all the time. I often tell it on stage. So I go to Kundalini, and, your eyes are closed for anybody that has never heard of Kundalini. It's a type of yoga. And because, you're not comparing. What a nice way. Close your eyes. Nobody sees, what you're doing. And, I'm crying, and I have no idea why I'm crying. I'm just buckets and buckets of tears, right? And I'm like, I don't even know what I'm crying about. And, of course, in Kundalini, everybody's quiet after, right? So, but I feel the need to talk. So then my yoga teacher, she normally makes yogi tea, and she had organic greens. So she would, just kind of put it out. And then I took a piece of the, organic lettuce or whatever, and I put it in my mouth, and, I was still having, feeling emotional, not sure why. So I'm driving home now from St. Catharines to Niagara Falls, and now I start to cry again. And all that comes to me is a vision of my grandfather. My grandfather used to plant a garden next to my family home when I was growing up in Trinidad. And I intuitively knew that taste of that organic, I don't know where this came from, was from him. And all he said to all the voice was, I'm crying now. I'm not sure why I'm crying. The voice said to me, you have always been loved. Don't ever forget that. And I'm like, so now I'm trying to process this. The psychotherapist in me is, okay, what's happening here? And I'm trying to make logical sense of something. And the other people in the class go, yeah, that happens all the time. And I'm like, what? So that's when I was like, wow, there was so much stuff that obviously was hidden, that in releasing things, I was allowing they talk about opening out your crown chakra, and us, like you said, overall consciousness, I was listening at a higher level. So can you speak to a little bit about that, about other dimensions? Because I know you are fully versed in that compared to me.
Yeah, I could say a lot to that. That's a really cool experience, by the way. So thanks for sharing that. I'll just speak about traditional Chinese medicine, for example. It not just helps people in pain, oftentimes people think needles, back pain, but it also helps with emotional issues. So within our scope of practice, we can treat depression and anxiety, for example, using acupuncture. And it really goes to show that our issues are really in our tissues, just like what you were saying. And so, for example, so a patient will be lying face down, and there's certain points on the back that help to address emotions. So when the needles are put in those points in a certain sequence and a certain length of needles, what happens is you'll start to see redness around those needles. And depending on the emotional state that person is, the circle will be large, and it'll be a heavy type of redness. And after about lying there for about half an hour, the redness will decrease. And so the needles are releasing that emotion, whether it's grief or anger, for example, that are associated with certain points. So I've witnessed that in my own practice, how the issues are in certain people's tissues and how that can be released just using acupuncture. To take that further, I guess, and talk about 5D TV, the media side of me, I've interviewed so many people that are connected or give testimony to their connection to higher dimensions, where they're able to communicate with their deceased, if you will, loved ones who have crossed over. And really the consensus is that no one is dead. Energy, you cannot destroy energy. Energy just changes forms. So the person is not gone, like not dead. The person has just transformed their energy and is in a different dimension. And so that's why they're able to still with that person, because that person is still there. Their consciousness is still there. And, as we're sitting here having this conversation, there's multiple dimensions within the reality within the space that we're in right now, that we could have access to if we open up our higher human perceptual system. So going back to yoga, which is what you do, really the spiritual part of yoga is to open up our chakras so we can be clairvoyant, clairaudient, and we can access the further realms of consciousness. I mean, that's what all the great yogis did. And if you ever, one of the great books I read was Muktananda. I mean, if you ever read A Journey in Consciousness by Muktananda, I mean, one of the great yogis that came out of India. And it's just all about taking your consciousness to a higher level. And yoga, like acupuncture, is just a tool to help you get there.
Fascinating, really, because I know that's one experience, but I know I've had several since from doing it, just different experiences. And sometimes you think, okay, what's happening here? Because, I've done hatha yoga and relaxing, relaxing elements, and I'd never done but you're talking about the state, that probably would make sense, right? Because with that states that I get into, because you're doing a lot of repetition of physical along with chanting, something happens that allows you to get out of the cognitive, which is where most of us live, and it gets you into the feeling, that heart center like you were talking about, and then experiencing your body in some different way. So tell us more about the concept of 5D TV, because I know with me, I'm always trying to figure out, kind of what should I read? Who should I listen to? What's the best music? What's the best, law of attraction? I'm always, and most of the people that I'm around, they're also doing the same things. So tell the listeners a little bit about the concept of 5D TV and where that birth of that concept came from for you.
Sure. Well, thanks for the opportunity to share about 5D TV. Originally, it was an evolution. It was my organic process of, working in studios at Rogers and Kojiko, learning production skills behind the camera, writing, hosting my own shows, to producing my own documentaries, 5 of them now. And so 5D TV came after that. It was like, hey, I need to develop a platform that can basically be a virtual library of high vibrational content to help people navigate the transition from the third dimension to the fourth to the fifth, and whatever is beyond that. And for me, I guess I got tired, frustrated, and bored of turning on the regular TV set to find the same old conversation that people are having on talk shows about, gossip in Hollywood. I mean, how many times have we heard that before? Or what's the next new dishware to buy for your dining room table set? I'm just like, really? Like, I am so over these old conversations that really are so superficial and just not nurturing my soul. So I don't even own a television. I don't watch cable TV. I do 5D TV is online. So if you're connected to the internet, you can access it. It is a subscription video on demand. And if you can see, there's so many, we have almost 200 titles now. And I have some producer friends in Australia helping to contribute some titles. And we have content really from all over the world that's on here, which is really neat because I want 5D TV to be a global community for people to access information. So we have everything from star nations, if you're interested in, intelligent life forms, we've got that information. We have human ascension information. We have health and wellness, alternative medicine, naturopathic medicine, information about the planet, Earth revival, how do we help heal the planet. We also have podcasts and radio shows out of the United States and Canada. We have Indigenous teachings, so remembering, our heritage and where we've come from. There's series. We have our latest one is Enlightened Sexuality that just came out of Australia, that she put that up there. So we have movement, we have Pilates. We even have talk about cryptocurrency, so the economy and money. And we have movies, of course. So it's a range of topics because the fifth dimension it's a spectrum of information. So it's just about collecting that information, making it a conscious living library for people to access globally.
So talk to me about the fifth dimension, because I'm just thinking, I've heard the concept. I don't know how much I could explain it. And I'm just wondering for people listening that maybe, I'm sure there's a lot of people that know more, but the average person that doesn't understand that concept, can you explain a little bit more?
Sure. So you can take the chakra system and map it out as ages of life. So the root chakra was, the Paleolithic time where there was cavemen type of a thing. Then we grew into the sacral chakra as a society where agriculture was introduced type of a thing. The arts and paintings, that type of era. Our sexuality was more awakened. Relationships started happening because we didn't have to hunt and kill for food. We could spend more time with people type of a thing. And then we grew into the third chakra, the industrial age. So we started, seeing businesses, started developing our personal power. The Aquarius age has brought us the heart chakra. So we're coming more into resolving conflict and duality and becoming more peaceful beings. Acceptance, forgiveness are things that we would practice at the heart level. The fifth level is we're becoming more connected. It's the information age. So we're becoming more connected because of the internet and everything seems so close now to us. And it's all about expression. So that's how we've really evolved, I guess, as beings, you know, thousands and thousands of years ago, using the chakra system as a map of collective consciousness. But also the fifth chakra is about speaking your truth, and voicing your truth. And it's also about, you know, clairaudience and connecting to other realms. It's also about purity and being very clear. And it's a higher level than the other chakras. And of course, you know, as we go, we evolve even more. So the fifth dimension is because we're in that transition between the third, the fourth, and the fifth right now. So some people are really at the third dimension, operating in, you know, their 9-to-5 job, the 9-to-5 lifestyle, have no clue about what we're talking about here. That's fine. You know, and then we have people that have kind of woken up, usually because of a trauma or a tragedy, and they're like, why am I breaking my back and sitting in my car for 5 hours going to work, and like, what's the point of life? So they wake up, they start to question their life and their purpose, and, you know, and they start to find meaning in your life, and that's where their heart chakra is really opening up. And then you have people who have, you know, done that heart chakra work, and now they're moving into the fifth dimension, and they're really connecting, they're bringing their work here. So it's more like a vocation as opposed to a job. It's more like they know what they need to do in this life. And it's just a different way of being in the world, a very, very different way of operating in the world.
So just accepting that we're all connected, and that, like, I know with me, when I started to speak, I've been doing my work since I was 21, but I went through something, and then out of that came the book, right? They out of the adversity, and saying, you know, I need to kind of share this message because it's something that people would be scared to talk about. Adversity came the book. So you're kind of talking about that shift of people saying, you know, whether it's somebody that you completely can't relate to, more than likely you are connected in some way to that person, versus somebody maybe, is that what you mean? About that all of us are connected in some way?
Yeah, so the fifth dimension is unity consciousness. So we're not separate, as opposed to if you're operating on the third dimension in that third chakra, it's a separation.
Okay.
And that's what regular psychology is all about. So the third chakra is about developing your ego. And we need a healthy ego in order to function in the world. And that's what basic psychology teaches people, is to have a healthy ego. And that's fine and all, but there's more to life than that. There's our higher self. So spiritual psychology teaches us about our higher self and how to integrate the higher energies into our ego container, so we're embody more of our higher presence in the world.
Okay. Wow, that's that makes a lot of sense, because you're right. Like, I mean, when I'm dealing with somebody with, say, for instance, trauma, they're often stuck, right? Like they're stuck in kind of, you know, I can't get past the pain. I can't get past the pain because I'm stuck with my flashbacks and those types of things. It's oftentimes hard for someone like that to get to a higher level because the pain keeps them stuck back in the past. So
well, it's not the pain, it's their narrative about the pain. So it's their story that they're so attached to. Right? So it's helping them to disassociate or unattach from that story that they've invested so much energy into.
So tell me how it's like if someone, let's say, goes to energy medicine, they've had a trauma, how would you approach something like that? I know traditionally I do something called EMDR, which is a reprocessing of the traumatic life timeline. And what happens is the person reprocesses and they reintegrate other parts of the story that allows them to evolve past it. So that's a therapy that's been developed about 25 years ago. So with energy medicine, if someone comes to you with trauma, how do you approach it, Lana?
Yep. So there's many different tools you can use for vibrational medicine. Again, acupuncture, it's a needle stimulating the subtle energy body to help them purge that emotion. That pain is an energy. So that's why acupuncture works really well with emotional distraught, because it's releasing that energy. So it's different from sending someone to a psychologist, for example, where they have to talk through their story again and again and again. So vibrational healing is about just releasing the energy. Like, you don't have to keep up that narrative anymore. It's really that simple.
Right.
And essential oils are another way. There's been work done where essential oils have actually helped people with post-traumatic stress. People in the military using essential oils, and they've shown just to release that stuck emotion.
Okay.
It's just energy you're releasing.
Right. So just finding out the appropriate path to release that energy so that the narrative is different, and which is why something like EMDR has been good for my field, because now when the person is going back, they're putting parts of it together, but they're shifting because they're able to look at it from a different perspective. So by the time they're done reprocessing the memory, they can have the same memory, but they don't have the distress anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So they look at it, and I say, it's kind of like, you're going to look at that same picture, but you're going to say, you know, that happened to me, but I don't have any feeling towards it. So it's, you know, it's a change of narrative, because, you know, they go back and they may have realized, I was 6 years old. How could I have protected myself? But mind you, all those years they were blaming that 6-year-old, for instance, and then they're able to shift it and look at it a different way. And then they go, well, of course, I'm a 6-year-old. Who's supposed to take care of me? Everybody else is supposed to take care of me. What? This is silly. Where was my mom, my dad, whatever. So it's you're right, but it's a different angle. So it sounds like obviously our field has evolved because it's included the body so much more. Whereas when I was training, way back, the body was not involved. So now there's been definitely an evolution. So with 5D TV, tell people where they can go, and where can they sign up if they want to get a hold of you, Lana, for whatever reason. Where can they do that? But ultimately, I know that 5D TV is something that you've been working on a lot, and I would love people that are interested in learning a lot more about what we've been talking about, because I'm sure I have a lot of questions. So I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of other questions. Where can they reach you? Where can they get to 5D TV?
All right, so 5D TV has its own website. It's called 5D.tv, and you actually spell out the word 5, so it's FIVED.tv. And once you jump on the website, you can join and subscribe. So there's 2 memberships. One's Explorer membership, no strings attached. You just want to explore the site. You can do that month to month, or there's something called the Star membership, where you get a little bit more savings if you pay for the year. So that's really how it works. It's very, very simple. The contact information is on there. If you want to shoot me a question, feel free to do. But yeah, check out the website 5D.tv. And also we have a Facebook page as well, where we post a lot of our production experiences and upcoming shows that you're going to see on our Facebook page. So yeah, I encourage you to check that out as well. And Instagram, we're also on Instagram. 5D.
Oh, perfect. So we can follow. I don't know that I'm following you in both of those, but I will.
Okay, yeah, I'll find you and I'll tag you.
Awesome. So this has been, I feel like, I've not had somebody that's talked about this, Lana. It's been fantastic, because it really shows you the evolution of the need for people to be aware that energy is pain, right? Because I think in my traditional kind of field, it's not looked at per se. It's coming because energy medicine has been introduced, but I think definitely an evolution is important. And for anyone listening, there's different ways, like Lana said. There's acupuncture, there's energy medicine, there's psychotherapy, there's EMDR, and it doesn't have to be something hugely traumatic, but it just may be something that's holding you back. And if that's the case, obviously there's different ways to approach it. So thanks so much for being with us, Lana. It's been a pleasure. And for everybody else out there, if you're wanting more information just on myself or the services that I offer, you can go to roxannedurhage.com/blueprints, where you'll be able to get a free course and be able to find out a bit more about my coaching and my courses. So take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Authentic Living with Roxanne, creating the space for positive, healthy change. Roxanne is a keynote speaker, psychotherapist, and coach. To work with Roxanne, visit roxannedurhage.com/blueprint. We'll see you next time on Authentic Living with Roxanne. Thanks for tuning in to Authentic Living with Roxanne, creating the space for positive, healthy change. Roxanne is a keynote speaker, psychotherapist, and coach. To work with Roxanne, visit roxannederhage.com/blueprint. We'll see you next time on Authentic Living with Roxanne.